Hello. Hi, LinkedIn family. I'm looking forward to our conversation today. The new leadership playbook for leadership in the AI era. I am here with my partner in crime, Vivek Mehta. Hello, Vivek.
Hello, excited to be here. This is a topic that Anissa and I both love to nerd out about. So we're excited for the discussion, and please send in any comments so that we can keep this as interactive as possible.
Absolutely prefer that. Thank you so much. So, I want to introduce us just briefly and kind of give folks a heads up about really what we're going to be chatting about today. While I do that, let me click around and make sure I can see comments when they come in. Yep, I think I'm good. Show on stream. There we are. So, Vivek, we have prepared just a very brief uh, deck. But before we begin, my name is Anissa Avon, and I want to say thank you for taking your lunch hour to spend a little bit of time with us. I am the co-founder and CSO of Weave AI and PeopleTransformation.ai. How that all came about is I have 28 years in learning and development. Founded Turnkey Coaching Solutions when my son was an infant, and I decided I really needed to do something that my heart called to, and that ended up being in the executive coaching and leadership training space. And over the years, what I recognized was that no matter how good the coach was or the training was, there was always only so much impact that we could have. And so, probably over a decade ago, I started experimenting with software solutions, lost the bank account in developing a solution that ended up not being a good one. Learned that I should stick to my own lane, and fast forward to about 5 years ago is when I met Vivek, and honestly just went, Vivek, I'm going to call you all the time because I really like your ideas about scaling learning and development, scaling execution, enabling execution using advanced technologies like artificial intelligence. And so we'll talk a little bit about that, but I wanted to give you a little bit of background about me. Vivek, would you share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you kind of covered it well. So I'm Vivek. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Weave AI. I've been building AI solutions since long before the advent of ChatGPT. And so our perspective on the use of AI in the workplace is a little bit different than what you might hear elsewhere. Like Anissa mentioned, we are very focused on the idea that AI is not just about automating away your lowest cost problems. It is about scaling the power, reach, and expertise of your highest cost, most valuable resources. And so when we speak to the new leadership playbook, we're talking mostly about how do you enable yourself to make an even greater impact across your organizations.
Fact. And that brings us to what we want to present to you today. In working with clients, what we're realizing is that AI is not just changing workflows, it's changing or influencing how leaders need to show up in order to drive innovation, accelerate results, be more efficient and effective in their output, in their productivity, in the way that they think about how work gets done. So, Vivek, if you would you share the little mini deck that we put together?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you just need to put it on the screen.
Well, see why I need to stick to my lane? You want me to hit a control button? Where is it? I see it. See how kind he said that to me instead of, hey, woman, this is in your ballpark. It's like, hey, put it on the screen. Do appreciate that. There we go. Can you guys see our deck? All right. I think so. So it, like we were saying, traditional playbooks are all about centered on strategic growth and efficiency and control. How do you focus on that 20% of activities that will produce 80% of the outcome? Now, we still want to focus on that 20%, but I do believe that today's leaders have to navigate a lot more uncertainty. They have to be prepared to make more mistakes, frankly, obviously in controlled environments, but they have to enable and empower experimentation and model new ways of working, new ways of driving input. And so that's what we're going to focus on today. So AI in the in the AI era, I call it mobilizing minds. And artificial intelligence gives us that capacity to maximize the potential contribution of every employee. And in fact, not only does it give us that potential, but the research is already out, and studies are finding that companies that empower their employees to use AI and give them the tools to leverage AI, but then also train them on how to use that, are retaining employees at a significantly higher rate than their competitors. And new hires, especially those high potentials, they don't want to work for a company that isn't empowering their people to leverage this new amazing technology. What's been your experience, Vivek?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely the case. And to kind of add on to that, a pushback that I often hear when it comes to AI initiatives, really any kind of digital transformation, is how much of an uphill battle it is in terms of aligning stakeholders and getting people on board and rolling it out. These can be multi-year long initiatives, and how many of those can we do in a single year? But what the research is now showing, this is from MIT Sloan, that teams that are role modeling learning behaviors, they are adopting technology 5 times faster. And so that digital transformation itself is happening at a much more rapid pace. And the nature of AI solutions, which I'm sure everyone on the call knows, are changing at such a fast pace, means that our workforces need to be in the position to adopt that change faster.
100%. I like to think of it as, that chef, right, who invites their team into the kitchen. You want to share the recipes. You want to talk about the flops, how you mix certain ingredients together, unless you want it to taste like mud, right? Those flavor experiments. And what I see a lot of leaders missing the boat on are actually empowering people to lead with that curiosity, such as, here's how what I asked AI to do today, right? And here's how I planned my 2-year-old granddaughter's birthday party using AI. And also, these are the weird things that came out. Or I'm thinking about creating an agent that will help me mine for past clients that I haven't reconnected with in a while, and see what's out there on the news, scrub the internet to see what's happening, right? And put something together. Those our clients who are leading with that curiosity and cultivating an environment inside their meetings. This is only a 5-minute segue, by the way. I'm not talking about massive time being taken away from what you're already doing. I am saying that when you lead with curiosity and you normalize that experimentation, now you're beginning to have those teams that you mentioned about in the MIT Sloan study that are actually role modeling how to learn AI and how to know that this is not some scary beast that's going to take their job, but if they use it, they will feel more productive and excited about coming to work every day.
And that kind of leads us to the next point, which is, how do we get the plane off the ground? And ultimately, trust is the runway. The biggest thing that makes a difference here is the delineation between when teams are just told, there's a blast from the CEO which says every team needs to start using AI, versus teams are co-creating and owning their own automation decisions. That's when fear starts to turn into ownership, and that's when adoption can actually take place.
Glad you mentioned that. The companies that, and this was a Deloitte Human Capital Trends article, and companies that involve employees in AI use case design see 60% higher adoption. Even along those areas where the IT or the AI innovation team comes in and says, I got a great idea, here's what we're going to do. That adoption is significantly lower when they haven't asked the folks on the ground, will this help you? How will it help you? How can I make it useful for you, right? And they also see a significantly higher ROI, and that's about 40% faster ROI, when in fact they're involving those employees in the use case design itself. So I'd love to hear from folks that are listening. So what do you see as some of the biggest misconception that leaders still have about AI? And Vivek, you and I can talk about this for days. I'll share one. If you've been on any of our other LinkedIn's, forgive me if I'm repeating some of our stories. And if this is you, that I'm repeating the story about, don't worry, I won't tell anyone that it's you. so, so some of the ones that I think about often is there's still an idea that AI isn't evolved enough, right, to be useful. Blows my mind. Sometime this year, we can buy a robot to do our dishes, and yet it's not evolved enough. So I'm super confused about that misconception. What are some of the misconceptions that you've seen, Vivek?
I think the biggest one is that AI is an IT initiative, when it's really the exact opposite. At the end of the day, a lot of AI solutions are really just front-end layers on top of existing technologies and automation workflows. But the big difference is having that more user configurable interface at the front means that AI technology can be owned by business teams now. So that's the major mindset shift that we're continually pushing. Everything from your ownership and adoption of teams, as well as the effectiveness of an AI implementation, is going to come from moving AI from simply this technical bucket into something that's actually going to increase effectiveness of your day-to-day staff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. One that I'll add is that we have to wait to give people permission to use AI until we have all of our rules in place, until we know how to lock down our data. And what I see, the biggest problem with that is the idea that some of your folks are not already feeding the machine outside your ecosystem your secret sauce, your strategy documents, your Excel files. I think companies are kidding themselves if their employees if you don't give them the AI system to use, they're secretly going home and on their own computer feeding your information to the machine. So let's make sure that you get a system locked down. And the second piece of that I think is a misconception is that it's some hard mystery. There are easy, I consider it a light bulb switch to lock down the systems, such as Copilot or using an enterprise chat GPT, et cetera, or Claude, or whoever your favorite is. You can turn it on and you can tell the machine not to use your data. And it's imperative to spend a single day, get it set up, get it rolled out, and get your people trained on it, because they're already using it and you don't want them to outside your system. Would you agree with that?
I would, yeah. And I know this kind of hits at one of your pet peeves around command and control.
Yep. I want to answer this question real quick before we go to that. Can you see? Hang on, let me show it. There we go. Is it on the screen? Thanks, Jed. That our AI strategy can just be to acquire AI features that our current enterprise vendors are offering. Ooh, Vivek, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, that is a fantastic point. I see this a lot, and I think that mindset comes from the idea of we cannot own AI innovation internally, that it has to come from a vendor from the outside. And while there is a truth to vendors that are specializing in certain offerings are going to maybe do something that you can't build internally, the way that we need to be thinking about these initiatives is much broader than the mindset of what our traditional vendors can do. The power of this technology is that we can now start to have teams create automated workflows that is extremely unique to their day-to-day circumstances. And that's not something that a large-scale one-size-fits-all vendor is going to do.
Well said. Well said. So related to the command and control kills innovation. I think that what I've pulling back from what we were just talking about, only thinking that vendors can offer us AI solutions means we're not holding the reins. We're waiting on someone else who doesn't know our business, who doesn't know our workflows. They may know some of the tech we use, but they don't know some of the pain that we necessarily experience with all of our integrated systems. So I find that when leaders over control, demanding proof and perfection before progress, before proof of concept, they kill innovation. And this is something that I have long believed, long before AI ever took hold of every waking minute. I think about it and think about the possibility. But AI era leadership works, in my opinion, like jazz, right? You want to set the rhythm, you want to put in some principles and some guardrails and some ethics, and let your team play. Give them permission to use the internal ecosystem to ideate, collaborate, create better methodologies for doing the work, brainstorm around how to maximize ROI or cut expenses. All of that can be done inside the system. So for me, it's about shifting from permission-based leadership. Wait for me to approve. I need to see it. I'm the bottleneck, and you guys just have to live with it, to more principle-empowered leader. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. When an initiative comes down too hard from the top, there's natural resistance. And if it's tied to, you got to learn this new thing, come up with new ideas, bring it into your day-to-day and see results right out of the gate, now you have people that are scared to take action. When you create rather the ingredients for success, now you start to see, paradoxically, ROI both much faster than when you're demanding it, and teams that are actually excited about using the technology.
Love it. Love it. I love the concept around ensuring that strong psychological safety, and knowing that when we give ourselves permission to make fun of ourselves and to own our mistakes and empower others to say, yeah, I'm barely scratching the surface on this thing. And we actually know that those teams with a little bit of vulnerability in the mix outperform others by as much as 40% in innovation and problem solving. And that's actually an HBR, or Harvard Business Review study. All right. So here's where it gets interesting, right? If your team's workflow is a messy closet, start cleaning it up. Vivek, will you talk to us a little bit about the importance of good data, but also how to get that data cleaned as we're moving forward with an innovation, as opposed to wait until we've got a nice, perfect database to do something?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a balancing act for sure. That said, I mean, trash in, trash out. So an AI system slapped on top of messy data and messy workflows is not going to magically solve problems. So there is upfront effort in making sure that we have a clean enough starting place, but we're not spending so much time in getting the foundation ready that we're never actually getting to the point of seeing value. And the way that we kind of think through where do you start and how do you prioritize is through identifying what are the quickest win projects. And we'll speak a lot more throughout this presentation on how do you identify the quickest wins that are going to get you ROI of your initiatives very quickly, going to be internal case studies for expansion in other areas, and happen at a pace where people can start to connect the dots between the expectation and reality of AI hype, because there is so much hype in this space right now, and very few of us are actually seeing the results of that hype in our day-to-day. When we focus on the quickest wins, people can start to go from that natural defensiveness of like, oh yeah, of course, we've been promised all these amazing things and it never happens, to, okay, we can start to see where this is actually valuable in our day-to-day.
Yeah, I love what's on the screen, the 87-step approval loop. All of us have 87 push buttons sometimes to get to the screen that we need to just submit the stupid report, or to get it to where it pumps out the analytics that we need to make the next decision. Most of us, in fact, are just overwhelmed with too much data. So in a moment when you begin talking a little bit about adoption, and then how to pick and choose the right projects, let's make sure Vivek, we also talk a little bit about that data overwhelm, and how to leverage technology to empower not just the leaders that have that data, but those on the ground to make better strategic and critical decisions based on that data.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a story I'll let Anissa share it, but what I do want to mention is I see a lot of teams kind of get lost in, they're lost in the sauce of AI, and they're not focusing on the bottom line KPIs that really matter. And that bottom line KPI may be different from team to team. So at the end of the day, we're looking not at, do we have the best features? Do we have the most usage? We should treat AI initiatives the same way we treat any digital transformation initiatives, and look to, are we having better decisions? Are we saving hours? Are we improving collaboration? The true ROI. And it seems like a simple point, but this is something where I see teams waste a lot of time in collecting and tracking data that ultimately does not matter.
We like the idea of the data, right? I love the idea of having it at my fingertips, but truth be told, unless it's at my point of decision, I tend to think, oh, I remember that, or I use my subjective instead of objective data to make those decisions. I want to talk a little bit about just something that we mentioned earlier, which is sharing successes. We have a client that has actually started just in their, we teach something called level 10 meetings, right? It's from the EOS operating. But level 10 meetings are an incredible way to be hyper productive in a 90-minute strategic meeting once a week to drive the most important priorities forward, right? And inside that, we have a client that has started just sharing, how much time do you think you saved this week? How much time did you save this week? Initially, there was just the leader, the primary leader, that was sharing that data. Eventually, other folks were like, I guess I need to come up with my own estimate here. And that one activity inspired the teams and then the managers to begin exploring just with the generative AI. But now, let's fast forward maybe 6-8 months, something like that. Folks are now experimenting with agentic AI. For everything from marketing to customer care, et cetera. And so now they're finally at this clip of confidence, and it's time for them to take advantage of where do we focus our actual priorities? And I think you're going to talk a little bit about that next, Vivek.
That's right. So some of you on the call might be familiar with the term cow paths. The idea of natural paths that are not the pre-built sidewalk or the road, but the paths that people create by walking on the grass until it becomes its own pathway. The example that we share most often is at MIT, planners waited to see where students were naturally walking before they paved the sidewalks. And so they were building around behavior, not around blueprints. And we view AI initiatives in kind of the same way, which is designing workflows around how people are already working in their day-to-day, not in terms of flipping people's days upside down at the same time that you're rolling out a new technology. The major difference that we see here is user-centered process design cuts resistance by 65%, and it boosts adoption by 3x. That's research from Forrester. And the best thing, in my opinion, here is not only are you getting better quality results, higher adoption, but teams are owning the change. And so it becomes, at the same time, a mindset shift and a people transformation. So this sets up that team for further success for their next initiative down the road.
So, I'm going to ask this question, but how? How can we leverage technology, or what are the methods for capturing those cow paths accurately?
That sets me up well, Nisa, because I'm going to go on a quick rant here. So we spoke earlier about how a lot of AI initiatives and how people conceptualize AI in the workplace is really very surface level kinds of things, which is different from true potential and accelerating our core workflows, our core decision making. So I want to share with you a unique methodology that we've developed that helps you get solutions that go beyond the obvious. So for those of you that are familiar with our solution at peopletransformation.ai, you've probably seen this image before. This is, of course, the org chart, the formal hierarchy, how we traditionally view our organizations. But this is what our organizations actually look like. So this is a visual depiction of a company's decision makers, their mentors, their collaborators, their trust networks, their information sharing networks, their emotional support networks. These are the critical relationships that drive an organization. These are the relationships that flex and adapt to solve organizational problems. And what you're looking at here is each one of these bubbles represents a specific individual. And now that we're zoomed in, you can see those individuals a little bit better. The way that we built this particular network is we asked employees a question: who do you need greater access to in order to perform your job more effectively? We can see all of these intricate lines in here. And if you look really close, you can see some of those arrowheads that are people answering one another. So this network basically highlights, in other words, where teams are struggling to get the connection and information and support that they need to perform their job. The way that we look at this is a map of opportunities for improvement. Traditionally, when we look at access gaps like this, the approach is we might need some new hires. We might need massive process redesigns. We might need reorgs. These are huge, expensive initiatives that sometimes are called for, but most of the time are going to be pretty tough for most organizations, especially in our current climate. What we found with our clients is that what this is actually a map of where AI initiatives can drive massive ROI. So for our clients that look at meeting the access gap through AI initiatives, we're thinking about how do we get more access to knowledge? How do we automate the upskilling of individuals to meet new challenges? How do we facilitate more efficient access across these pathways? And each one of those is a big bucket of worms that I love to nerd out about, but take too much time for today. But what I can tell you is that our clients are seeing massive results from this as a starting point for identifying AI initiatives, where $1 in gets you $10 out. But I want to talk about how do we take this and package it in something that is going to make sense for internal approval. How do we get stakeholder buy-in? And Anissa, could you talk a little bit about how we can make the financial story make sense?
Talking my favorite language. So, being in learning and development and in the leadership development and coaching and training space, majority of my work is obviously about supporting people first as a strategy. But the truth is in strategy, there are certain phases as an organization grows where if they put profit first above people, they're gonna flip, right? It's not gonna work. But there are also times if you put people before profit, you sink. And so it's really essential to overlay those performance indicators inside those who need the most assistance, as Vivek was talking about. In fact, Chad earlier said, thanks, Chad, for your comment. You can see that on psychological safety. Love that you address this with AI. And one of the ways you address it is by identifying those in the network analysis that are on the outskirts, those islands that need support. Well, what's one key performance indicator that we know we need to address in organizations? Employee satisfaction, employee engagement, employee retention, right? And so when that's just one of the KPIs, but let's say that one of the KPIs that we need to improve is employee retention. Let's say you're at 30% and you really need to get down to 20, which is the bare minimum to save your gazillion dollars that you're looking to save this year, right? The network analysis helps us identify those networks and who's not connected, who needs support, who's an island, but also who might be the greatest influencer to pull that person in to address those island issues. That's just one of the KPIs. If in fact you can leverage artificial intelligence, making people's jobs easier, network analysis, and the I don't know what is the latest number of how many calculations, 60,000 that you do when we do those O&As. Is that right, Vivek?
Yeah, because we're basically looking for the correlation between a bottom line KPI and the interpersonal people dynamics.
Yep.
And oftentimes creating alignment between those two things is very expensive when you have an intricate understanding of these influence patterns. You have the same level of gut intuition about your entire organization as you might with your team members that you work with day to day. That's when we can design AI workflows that can bridge some of those gaps.
Exactly. And address that psychological safety. When people
right.
have the opportunity to weigh in, they're going to buy in. And when we put our influencers, those that have the greatest knowledge, energy, influence, we actually can have a greater impact for our initiatives. But let's talk a little bit about prioritizing our profit and loss impact. So what you're looking at is just a simplified example, right? In the left, we have teams in a company. In column 2 is how big their access gap. Again, simplified numbers just for illustration purposes only. But higher is worse, right? If a 5 means they don't have a lot of access to the people that they believe they need to get their job done. I want you to ask yourself, you're in a role, you have just rated your access to the folks you need, to the knowledge and the people that you need to get your job done, a 5, meaning you don't feel like you have any of the resources you need, pretty much. That person has one foot out the door. Now, from a subjective standpoint, a lot of people don't, it's difficult to subjectively identify who's about to quit and why. That O&A allows us to actually identify that as an example. But then we overlay their issue resolution time on the network. We can see that in the next column, resolution time, how many hours ahead or behind target they are. Then in the savings column, you can do a simple formula of cost of each issue resolution over target times number of issues a year, right? And now we have a financial story. AI experimentation is exciting, but without this kind of financial prioritization, I see so many companies putting the AI initiative in their IT department, and in some cases, they're owning it and they're going out to the people and they're figuring out the workflow and the ROI opportunities. But other cases, it becomes about what matters to IT, not matters to the bottom line as much. And that's a big problem. And so being able to not just look for cool use cases, but look for those P&L ready ones. That means ranking projects by measurable business impact, revenue lift, cost reduction, efficiency that directly affects your profit margins. But even more, asking your people to figure out and to do the math related to, if you could save 2 hours of your day on a task. Remember, earlier we said, look for the biggest pain points. Where does it really hurt? What would you do with that time? How might that save the company money? Or even better, how might that make you happier, more engaged. And hey, remember that pet project that you've been wanting to do for 2 years? What if you had time to do that, as an example?
And one thing that I'll just add here, this is a pretty simplified version of this kind of diagnostic. For example, you can see field service, it's not just a squeaky wheel, it's a $12.7 million opportunity. That language helps leaders turn data into financial gravity, and then alignment and buy-in naturally flow from there. But I do want to mention that this is something that we do for organizations, very specific to your organization's access gaps, the specific KPIs that we're looking to push on. And so if you're looking for support in terms of how do we prioritize what that next initiative is going to be, what is the lowest hanging ROI, we're more than happy to discuss.
And something worth mentioning is that about 70% of AI pilots stall because they lack a clear connection to the financial performance metrics. And that goes for all the above, right? Whatever that pilot is, it's going to stall if people don't see, and especially your leaders, don't see that financial benefit.
Yeah, exactly. It's not where can we use AI generally, it's where is AI going to move the P&L.
Yeah. So go ahead, Vivek.
This is really where you can see how our thinking is kind of shaped by network understanding. We find that when in a silo, AI initiatives fail, but they tend to thrive when you have alignment between your business staff, your HR, your ops, and your IT around particular outcomes. It's a simple message at the end of the day, but cross-functional collaboration is what can guarantee success of an AI project. In fact, the studies show that it can increase your project success rates by 76%. It is traditionally very, very difficult to understand the points of cross-functional collaboration, and it's kind of just based off of a gut instinct and if you have strong people that are representing individual teams. This is another area where understanding an organization's connections through a network lens can help you set up team structures around AI initiatives that are going to lead to success.
Yeah. My contractors are back. Can you hear them, Vivek? I'm sorry.
I can hear them.
If it's too bad, I can put on my headset. But let's talk a little bit about the workflow, right? If the AI is not in the workflow, it's not in the culture. So to begin wrapping up, we want to embed AI where work happens, your CRM, your Slack, your project tools. You want to make it native, not bolted on. That's the playbook, right? And that's one of the reasons why just waiting for the vendor, that's a bolt on. Do they really know what we need or what's going to impact our ROI? Or do they just want to give us another bill because, hey, incremental revenue for them? Great idea, right? We need to stop thinking using AI and start thinking, I want to work smarter. I want to be more efficient, more productive. Get back to working on the business instead of in the business. And AI can give us so much time, energy, and cognitive and release some of that cognitive load that we often experience at work. We also want to make sure that our adoption sticks and weave it in, don't layer it on top. And Vivek, we haven't even spoken about our mentorship grade AI. This isn't intended to be a commercial, which is why we haven't talked a lot about what some of our tech does. But would you speak briefly about how we leverage conversational AI and learning in the flow of work and to onboard and adopt and drive greater adoption across initiatives that companies are implementing?
Yeah, absolutely. As we kind of spoken about a couple of times here, we really think about adoption as coming from the bottom up. And it is very, very difficult to manage large scale bottom up rollout because traditionally we are sending out emails and having morning meetings and town halls, and most of the messaging is coming from the top down. And that's because at anything smaller than a single office organization, it takes a lot of time to initiate that kind of transformation from the bottom up. One of our clients, they were previously spending, they had a team, an entire team whose full-time job, 40 hours a week, was to drive from site to site, understand employee needs from the bottom up, and then help them co-champion initiatives for change. It was incredibly effective, but incredibly expensive, and took several people whose full-time job was just doing that. The way that we think about our AI agent solution that we call GIA is how do we make that approach work at scale, where we can understand what are the unique needs at the individual's workflow level? How do we connect them to the right resources and bridge some of those gaps that we see in the network? How do we help them co-own and sponsor change that is going to drive engagement, adoption, and ultimately ROI? It's a pretty deep thing to jump into, so I won't go into all of it today, but I will mention that the way that we think about conversational agents is not about the standard use cases you hear about just how do we answer questions from a knowledge base, or how do we handle a basic customer support query. It's much more about how do we activate transformation from the bottom up, aligning an individual's transformation with the vision and goals of an organization.
Love it. Love it. Thank you. That's great. Well, we don't want to leave you hanging. We did prepare a little bit of an infographic, the new leadership playbook, 6 steps to lead with confidence in the AI era. Starting with benchmarking your reality. We got to start with honest insight. Number 2 is all about shifting from commanding to collaborating. Number 3 is all about activating that middle, engaging your managers and your mid-managers and your frontline folks early, mobilizing those change champions. Vivek spoke a little bit about that related to the network analysis, and then being able to build ownership and confidence. Finally, we want to track, share progress, and celebrate those wins. So you'll see on the screen, there's a QR code. There's no squeeze page. You don't have to enter your name or email to get it. You're welcome to tell us what you think about it. Love to hear your thoughts. Welcome the opportunity to connect with you, learn about what you're up to, share a little bit about what we're up to, see if there's a way for us to support you, your teams, or collaborate. You'll see also on the screen, there's a strategy call QR code. Hop on our calendars, hit us up for a little bit of AI nerd talk, as Vivek put it. Thank you guys for joining us. And Vivek, as always, I learn something new every time. So I appreciate your collaboration.
Same here. Thank you so much, all. See you next time.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon.